My sister framed me for stealing family money while I supported her business, so I waited, then played my move and took back everything quietly. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've always been the one who got blamed for everything in my family. It's like I was the invisible scapegoat, the one everyone turned to when things went wrong. Even when I was a kid, if something broke or disappeared, I was the first to be accused, no questions asked. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how many times I tried to show I wasn't the screw-up, it never mattered. They always had their eyes on me when something bad happened. Growing up, my younger sister Emma was always the golden child. I don't think my parents even realized they were doing it, but they treated her like she could do no wrong. She was smart, outgoing, everyone loved her, and she always got the best of everything: new clothes, trips, the newest phone, whatever she wanted. And I just wasn't that person. I was the one who worked harder, who stayed out of trouble, and who kept my head down. But for some reason, it was always me getting blamed for stuff she did, or for things that weren't even my fault, and yet I never resented her. In fact, I went out of my way to support her. When Emma wanted to start her own business after college, I put aside my own dreams to help her. I worked long hours at my job to cover her startup costs. I even took out a small loan to help her buy supplies. I told myself it was okay. Family comes first, right? She was my sister. I was supposed to support her. But somewhere deep inside, something started to change. As I watched her soar with her business, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left behind, unseen, unappreciated. Something didn't sit right, but I kept my mouth shut. I wasn't the kind of guy to rock the boat, so I let it slide. But as the months went by, I began to feel it more and more, like something was off. The resentment I buried deep inside was starting to creep to the surface. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. It all started when Emma began to show signs of entitlement. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, overthinking things. But the way she began to treat me started to change, and I couldn't ignore it. When she first asked for my help with her business, it was exciting. I was happy to play a role in her dream. It felt like we were building something together. But as the business began to grow, Emma started to change. Slowly, but unmistakably, she began taking the credit for everything. Every sale, every positive comment, every new contract Tima was the face of it all. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself that she deserved the recognition. But when it became clear that I was nothing more than a silent partner, something inside me snapped. I was the one working late nights, the one managing the finances, the one picking up the slack when things went wrong. And yet, when anyone asked, Emma was the brilliant entrepreneur. Emma was the one with the vision. She wasn't just asking for my help anymore. She was demanding it. She'd call me at odd hours, interrupting my work only to ask for something else. Can you pick up this shipment for me? Can you help me with this paperwork? And when I'd express my frustration, she'd brush it off. Come on, don't be such a baby. It's not like I'm asking for much. It started to feel like a chore, like I was just a tool in her hands, there to do her bidding. I was tired, so tired, but I kept doing it because that's what family does, right? They help each other out. But deep down, something started to build resentment, anger, and a growing sense that I was being taken advantage of. I wanted to tell her how I felt, how it was unfair, but I couldn't bring myself to. She was my sister. I'd helped her, supported her. So why was it starting to feel like I was the one getting used? And then, one day, she asked for something big, something I couldn't ignore. It happened one evening when I came home from a long day of work. I was exhausted, physically drained from juggling my job, handling my own responsibilities, and constantly being there for Emma. I had just collapsed on the couch when I saw her name flash across my phone. Hey, I need you to come over now. Her tone was rushed, almost frantic. I hesitated for a moment, but she sounded upset, so I grabbed my jacket and headed over to her place. When I walked in, the atmosphere felt ... tense. Emma was pacing around the living room, her face twisted in frustration. My stomach dropped. What's going on? I asked, trying to mask the exhaustion in my voice. She turned to me, her eyes wide, almost pleading. Someone took money from the business account. A lot of it, she said, her voice shaking. I don't know who did it, but the bank is saying the transaction went through under your name. My heart stopped. What? I haven't touched your business account in weeks. You know that." She didn't look convinced, but I don't know anyone else who has access to it. You're the only one who could have done it. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I stared at her in disbelief. You're accusing me of stealing from you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My voice trembled with anger, hurt, and confusion all at once. I didn't want to believe it, she snapped, her eyes darting around the room as if she were searching for something. But the evidence is right there, and I can't ignore it. The money's gone, and you were the last one who had access. I felt my stomach twist into knots. The last few months, everything had been building up to this moment, and now it was clear I was being framed. But why? Why would she do this to me, after everything I'd done for her? "I didn't do it, Emma," I said, my voice steady despite the panic rising inside me. "I swear to you, I didn't take the money." But she wasn't listening. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered, her voice cold. "It feels like you've been hiding something from me all along." And just like that, everything I'd worked for, the trust, the years of helping her, was shattered. I was blindsided. But at that moment, something inside me hardened. The days after that conversation felt like a slow descent into hell. I couldn't even look at Emma without feeling the weight of her betrayal hanging over me. She refused to listen, refused to believe me. It was as though the sister I once knew, the one I'd helped, supported, and sacrificed for, was gone. Instead, I was left with a cold, accusing stranger. But what hurt more than Emma's denial was how the rest of the family turned on me. The accusations spread quickly. "How could you do this to your sister? She trusted you, and now you've ruined everything." It felt like I was suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me from all sides. I tried to defend myself, tried to explain that I had nothing to do with the missing money, but no one was listening. Not my parents, not my relatives. The worst part, I was completely alone. Every phone call from family was filled with judgment. Every conversation, a new layer of guilt piled on me. No one seemed to care about the years of support I'd given them, all the sacrifices I made for Emma's success. It was like none of that mattered now. I was the villain, and Emma was the victim. Even at work, I felt the sting of isolation. I used to be the reliable one, the one people could count on, but now I was a shadow of that person. The shame of being accused of something so horrific ate at me every day. The more I tried to explain, the more people looked at me with suspicion, as if the story had already been decided. I was the thief. I sank into a depression. I stopped talking to my friends, stopped going out. I couldn't bear the weight of being the accused. The nights were the worst, lying awake in the dark, my mind spinning with thoughts of how everything went wrong. I thought of how I helped Emma build her business, how I paid off bills for her, and how, in the end, she turned on me without a second thought. I hit rock bottom. I had nothing. No family, no trust, no future, just the bitter sting of betrayal. And that's when I realized something deep inside me was beginning to shift. I wasn't going to let her destroy me, not this time. I spent the next few weeks in a haze of anger and confusion. Emma's betrayal didn't make sense, and the way my family turned against me still stung. But beneath the surface, something started to change. I couldn't just sit there and take it. I knew something wasn't right, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was more to the story than Emma was letting on. She'd been hiding something there. Had to be a reason why she was accusing me of stealing, why she'd turned everyone against me. I decided to dig deeper. It wasn't easy, but I started looking into the financials of her business. I went through her records, piece by piece, trying to find any inconsistencies. There were moments when I felt like a stranger, combing through someone else's life. But the more I dug, the more things didn't add up. Emma had always been a bit careless with her business, but this was different. There were too many gaps in the numbers, and the discrepancies seemed to ... deliberate. It wasn't until I found an email from one of her suppliers, one that she had conveniently forgotten to mention, that everything clicked. It was a payment receipt for a large sum of money, one that she'd conveniently forgotten to record. And the account it came from, her personal account, not the business account. I stared at the screen, disbelief flooding through me. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't an accident. Emma had been siphoning money off the business for months. And when she realized she'd gone too far, when things were starting to unravel, she blamed me. She framed me for the theft to cover up her own mistakes. She made me the scapegoat so she wouldn't lose everything. I felt sick to my stomach. The sister I'd given everything to, the one I'd trusted with my time, my money, and my future, had been lying to me the entire time. She used me. She manipulated me. And worse, she was using our family as collateral in her web of lies. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not anymore. After discovering Emma's lies, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It was like a fog had lifted, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the situation clearly. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the one who'd betrayed the family, she was. But the truth was, no one would believe me unless I could prove it. And that meant playing this game on my terms, not hers. I spent the next few days quietly plotting. It wasn't like me to be sneaky or underhanded, but Emma had forced my hand. She'd destroyed the trust I had in her, and now I was going to take back everything she'd stolen from Mike quietly, methodically, and with as little noise as possible. I started gathering evidence. I knew the business inside and out, so it was easy to find discrepancies in the records. But I needed something solid, something irrefutable. I couldn't just confront her, not yet. That would only give her a chance to twist the story in her favor again. No, I needed to build my case step by step. I began tracing the money, making a note of every suspicious transaction, every unaccounted-for purchase, and every unreported expense. I was like a detective in my own life, and the more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Emma was hiding a lot more than just 1 or 2 stolen payments. But I didn't act immediately. I knew Emma was smart. She would be watching, waiting for any sign that I was catching on. So I played the part quiet, reserved, like nothing had changed. I answered her calls when she needed me. I helped out when asked, and I kept up the facade of the dutiful brother. But inside, I was burning. I knew what she was capable of now, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I also started distancing myself from the family, subtly pulling away from the constant judgment and accusations. Every conversation felt like a battle, and every word they said only made me more resolved to take control of the situation. I couldn't trust them anymore. Not until I had proof. And then, one day, I found exactly what I was looking for: an email from Emma to one of her suppliers. Admitting to her mistakes, admitting that she had been taking money from the business for months. It wasn't just a slip. She had planned this. And now, I had her confession in black and white. I couldn't believe it. She had just given me the final piece of the puzzle. I was ready. The next step was going to change everything with the email in hand. I felt a strange mixture of triumph and disgust. I had everything I needed to bring Emma down, to expose the truth for what it really was. But I wasn't going to rush into it. I knew that if I confronted her too soon, she would just lie her way out of it, play the victim, and twist the situation in her favor. No, I needed to be patient. I needed to give her just enough rope to hang herself. Over the next few weeks, I kept a low profile. I didn't confront Emma. I didn't say anything to the family. I just watched, waited, and gathered more information. Every time Emma called, I played along like nothing was wrong, answering her questions, helping her out with whatever she needed. But in the back of my mind, I was planning my next move, carefully plotting how I would use everything I had learned against her. I started to plant subtle seeds. I mentioned casually to Emma how I'd been looking over the business's financials, pretending like I was just checking in on her progress, asking innocent questions about certain transactions. Hey, I noticed a payment to that supplier we used last year. You didn't mention that one in the reports. Everything okay with them? I watched her reaction closely. At first, she seemed indifferent, brushing it off like it was no big deal. Oh yeah, that's nothing. Just some old invoices I forgot to log. But there was a flicker in her eyes, a brief hesitation, as though she realized she'd said too much. She quickly changed the subject, but I could see the cracks in her armor starting to show. I didn't push her further. Instead, I waited, keeping my distance and letting her think I was clueless. I knew Emma, I knew her weaknesses, and I also knew how to get her to slip up without her even realizing it. A week later, she called again. This time, her voice was shaky, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. Can we talk? I think I made a mistake. I don't know how to fix it, she said, her words barely audible. That was my cue. I didn't have to say anything else. I just nodded and listened as she spilled her guilt, her insecurities, and finally, her admission of the truth. She confessed that the money had been taken for months, that she'd been covering up her mistakes, and that I had been the perfect scapegoat for everything that had gone wrong. She apologized, but it was too late for apologies. I knew it was time. The trap had been set. Now it was time to expose her. I had all the pieces, now every scrap of evidence, every word she'd accidentally let slip, and most importantly, her confession. I could feel the tension building inside me. The moment of reckoning was close, but I didn't want to confront her alone. I wanted everyone to see her for what she truly was: a liar, a manipulator, and someone who had not only betrayed me, but also my entire family. I called a family meeting. I could already feel the weight of the decision hanging over me. It wasn't something I was looking forward to, but it was something that had to happen. Emma had spent too long spinning her web of lies, using me as her scapegoat while playing the role of the perfect daughter, the perfect entrepreneur. When the day of the meeting arrived, I sat in the living room waiting for everyone to gather. Emma walked in first, her face pale and tight with nerves. She didn't know yet what I had planned, but the moment she saw the email printout on the table, she stiffened. She could feel it, too. Something had shifted. One by one, the family arrived, and the tension in the room was palpable. I didn't waste any time. I looked directly at Emma, keeping my voice calm and steady. "You've been accusing me of stealing money from your business," I said, my eyes never leaving hers, "and you've done everything to turn everyone against me. But I have something to show you, something you can't deny." I slid the email across the table for everyone to see. Emma's face went white, and I could see the panic building behind her eyes. I didn't let her speak yet. "This is from you, Emma. You've been lying about the money, hiding it, and framing me. You've been using me, all while pretending like you were the victim." The silence in the room was deafening. My parents, my cousins, everyone just stared at Emma, the weight of the truth sinking in. "I have every transaction, every email. I have proof of your manipulation, your cover-ups, and your lies." I could feel a wave of satisfaction rush over me as Emma's world began to crumble around her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I had her. She had nothing left to hide behind. "You've taken everything from me, from all of us," I continued, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and relief. "I've been the one who's always had your back, always helped you, and you turned on me. You made me the villain in your story. But I'm not the villain here. You are." Emma's face twisted in desperation. She tried to defend herself, but the words felt empty. The family wasn't listening anymore. They could see the truth now. "I don't expect an apology," I said, my voice cold as I stood up to leave. "But this is the last time I'm going to let you play me. You've taken enough." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her with nothing but the shattered pieces of her lies. As I stepped out of that room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. The silence that followed was like the calm before a storm. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as I walked down the hall, but I didn't dare look back. I had already said what needed to be said. I had already done what I had to do, but the fallout wasn't just about Emma anymore, it was about the family. For so long, I had been the one blamed, the one cast aside. But now, as the truth hit them, my family was forced to reckon with the fact that they had blindly believed Emma over me. They had chosen her side without question, without knowing the whole story. I heard my mother's voice before I even entered the living room again. "How could you do this, Emma?" she was saying, her voice cracking with disbelief. "How could you lie to us like this?" My father was quieter, but I could feel his disappointment hanging in the air like a suffocating cloud. "You've been lying to us for months," he asked, his voice low, but the anger in it was clear. Emma didn't respond. She couldn't. What was there left to say? All the years of being the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong, crumbled with one simple email. And in that moment, I could see that Emma realized she had lost them all. The floodgates opened. My mother turned on her, her words sharp and unforgiving. "You've been using your brother, lying to us all, and framing him for something you did. How could you do this to the family?" Her voice shook with a mix of anger and hurt. I could see the tears welling up in Emma's eyes, but they didn't move me, not anymore. I had given her everything: my time, my support, my trust, and she threw it all away for her own selfish gains. She had no right to ask for sympathy now. Emma tried to plead her case, but every word felt hollow. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice breaking. "I was just trying to fix things. To save the business, you ruined it all," my father interrupted, his voice bitter. "You ruined everything, Emma. You've destroyed the trust we had in you." And just like that, she was alone. All the people who once looked up to her now saw her for who she really was, a manipulative liar. I stayed in the doorway, not saying a word. I didn't need to. This was her reckoning, not mine. She was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Emma broke down in front of them, her facade cracking completely as she realized she had lost not just her business, but the family she had manipulated for so long, and me. I stood there, calm, collected. The rage that had consumed me for weeks had finally subsided, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. I had taken my power back, piece by piece, and now I was free. Free of the lies, free of the manipulation. Free of her. In the days that followed, I realized the true power of what I had done. The family had seen Emma for who she really was, and it wasn't the perfect, successful daughter they'd always admired. No, she was a liar, a thief, someone who had used the trust of everyone around her to feed her own selfish desires. The fall from grace was swift, and watching it unfold was more satisfying than I ever imagined. But as much as I wanted to revel in her downfall, I had learned something important over the past few weeks. Revenge wasn't about making a scene or dragging her through the mud. It was about quiet justice. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to make her suffer for the world to see. Her lies, her betrayal, they'd already caught up with her in the most painful way possible. She was the one who had to live with what she had done. I didn't need to speak much to my family after that moment. They knew where I stood. My parents, while devastated by Emma's actions, slowly started to realize just how much I had sacrificed for the family over the years. My mother's eyes softened as she apologized for not trusting me sooner. My father, usually the silent one, gave me a quiet nod of approval. It wasn't much, but it was enough. They could see the truth now, and for the first time. I felt like they really understood me. As for Emma, her business crumbled soon after the family meeting. Without the trust of her clients, without the support of the family, she couldn't keep it afloat. The money she'd siphoned off from the business wasn't enough to save her. In fact, it only dug her deeper into a financial hole. I could feel the weight of everything she had taken from me lifting as her empire fell apart. I didn't need to say anything. The business was her life's work, and now it was gone. Just like the trust I had once placed in her, I had no interest in taking satisfaction from her misery. But I couldn't deny that it felt like a small victory of quiet justice. She didn't deserve the life she had built on lies, and now it was slipping through her fingers. I had taken back everything that mattered to me, not with anger or hatred, but with patience, with evidence, and with the simple truth. She had underestimated me, thinking I would just lie down and take the blame. But I didn't, and that's what stung the most. The realization that Emma, in her desperation, had thought I was weak enough to let her walk all over me. In the aftermath of it all, things slowly began to settle, but the scars of the past were still there on Emma, on my family, and most of all, on me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight I had carried for so long, the burden of being the scapegoat, the one always blamed for things out of my control, had lifted. The lies had been exposed, the truth had been set free, and I could finally move forward without looking over my shoulder. It wasn't easy. My relationship with my parents, while healing, wasn't the same. They had been blind to Emma's manipulation for so long, and while they were sorry, I couldn't just forget how they had stood by her when I needed them the most. Still, I chose to move on. I couldn't keep carrying their mistakes, their guilt, and their misplaced loyalty. They weren't perfect, but neither was I. We were all flawed. But now I had the freedom to carve my own path. I made peace with my past, both the good and the bad. Emma and I didn't speak much after that, and honestly, I wasn't sure I ever wanted to again. I wasn't looking for closure or reconciliation. What had happened between us was too deep, too raw. But I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need to see her face again. She had shown me exactly who she was, and I had learned the most important lesson of all. I was worth more than the way she treated me. I started focusing on myself, on my own career, my own happiness. I had neglected my own dreams for so long, always putting Emma's needs first, always trying to please my family. But now, I was free to go after what I wanted, without worrying about how it might affect anyone else. I enrolled in a class I'd been putting off for years, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I made new friends, people who truly saw me for who I was, not the family's punching bag, not the one who always took the blame. As for Emma, I didn't follow her downfall too closely. I didn't need to. I had seen her unraveling before my eyes. But one day, I heard through the grapevine that she had to sell her business and move out of the house she could no longer afford. She had lost it all: her business, her reputation, and her family. For the first time, she was facing the consequences of her own actions. And the best part, I was no longer a part of it. She was no longer my problem. I could feel my heart lighten. I had nothing left to prove. I wasn't the villain in her story. I was the one who had learned to rise above, to walk away, to take back what was mine. Emma had stolen from me, yes, but what she didn't realize was that in the end, I had taken back my power, and that was something she could never take from me. I walked away from the wreckage of our past, stronger, wiser, and finally, free. In the months that followed, I found a peace I never thought I'd reach. There were moments, of course, when the pain resurfaced. When I'd see someone post about Emma's business on social media, or when I'd run into family members who hadn't yet fully understood the extent of the betrayal, but those moments grew fewer, and the feeling of healing became more constant. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. I didn't need to make them understand. I started to focus on my own life, building a future that wasn't tied to the past. I quit the job I had been stuck in for years, the one I had been holding on to just to keep the family afloat. I started my own business, the one I'd always dreamed of but had pushed aside for so long. It was terrifying at first, putting my heart into something I knew would be all on me, but it felt right. It felt like I was finally doing something for myself. I poured my energy into it, and slowly but surely, things began to take shape. There was something deeply liberating about no longer being weighed down by Emma's manipulations. I realized how much of my life I'd spent in her shadow, always trying to prove myself, always running in circles to fix the problems she created. Now, I had the space to just breathe, to create something from the ground up, something that was mine. I could feel the tension in my shoulders ease as I started to live for myself, not for anyone else's expectations or approval. I had moments where I thought about Emma, wondered how she was doing, what was left for her now, but those thoughts were fleeting. I wasn't interested in her anymore. Her life was no longer my concern. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. The weight of being her pawn was gone. I wasn't the guy who always got dragged into the messes. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. My business began to take off in ways I never imagined. I began networking, meeting people who genuinely supported me not because they had to, but because they respected what I was building. Slowly, I felt a sense of belonging again, a sense of purpose that wasn't tainted by the years of emotional labor I had put into trying to make everyone else's dreams come true. And one day, while I was at a business conference, I ran into an old friend I hadn't seen in years. We caught up, laughed about old times, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. There was no grand closure with Emma, no moment where we both sat down and talked it out. I didn't need that. What I had found was so much better. I had found myself. I had taken back what was always mine, my happiness, my peace, my power, and I didn't need anyone's permission to claim it. As I moved forward in my life, I realized something important. Sometimes, the hardest part of letting go isn't just walking away. It's forgiving yourself for staying so long. And for the first time, I could honestly say that I had forgiven myself for everything.